I think it is time for NXT to take over.
Suplex City, bitch.
What's your favorite match?
My favorite match was with Melina and Alicia Fox.
Who?
I told my father I'm gonna set up my own lucha league in America, and I'm gonna make it the best league in the world.
I'm gonna leave him in a pile of blood and urine and vomit.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. The wrestling podcast where we talk to a fabulous figure of the wrestling podcasting world this week. My name as the host of this show every single week, of course, is Turbo Tony. You used to be mine now. I'm not that interesting to you guys anymore. And, well, somewhat more interesting myself is my co-host, as always, with me all the time, Matt Marsander. How are you doing this week, Matt?
Very good, but it'll always get a bit bland. Have to mix it up a bit.
Exactly. That's it. We've got a special treat for our fans here this week, and we've got a big name. What I like to call the Hail Mary pass of our show. We managed to secure an interview with a very big name and an inspiration for our own show here. And let me do a little bit of introduction here. Let's go by a man I'll play by the numbers. Almost 8 years of podcasting, over 400 episodes, and one of the most popular wrestling podcasts on the internet today. The host of the Solomonster Sounds Off, the Solomonster himself. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a hell of an intro. I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, I'll try and make it as good as I can. I'm no Paul Heyman yet, but I'll get there.
I have peaked. I can only go down from here.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, that's good. How you doing?
1.5 hours.
Yeah. How you doing this week?
I'm doing okay. Just working on 5 million different things at once as usual. But I'm glad we made time to make this happen.
Yeah, it sounds like my regular weekend, to be honest. Working on 5 million things sounds about right.
You can relate.
Yeah. One thing I have to say, just before we get into, everyone knows that on our show I like to procrastinate, right? You know, our show is Let's Talk Wrestling. People naturally assume that's what we do, but we like to talk about a lot of stuff before we get down to the the actual talking of wrestling. 400 episodes, that's quite an achievement. And you do about 2 hours each week on your own show. By yourself, I can only say this. I've got a co-host with me, and after 2 hours, my voice is wrecked. How do you pull it off each week?
That's a good question. A lot of water bottles. That's my suggestion. A lot of water bottles. I don't really have an answer for you. It's weird, too, because there was a period of time, I'd say maybe, 5-6 years ago, I was running into an issue where I was maybe losing my voice a little bit. And, I didn't really make any specific change that I can remember. But ever since then, everything's been cool. And no matter how much audio I seem to do, I guess it's good that I can still speak. So we just keep rolling with it.
Is it a way that you kind of build calluses on your vocal cords and eventually just go from there?
I just put steroid injections directly into my voice box. That seems to do the trick.
Well, now we know why you get angry on some of your episodes. Maybe you need to tone back on that a little bit.
Maybe. Well, they don't wellness test me, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, there is that, exactly. No 30-day suspension for yourself there.
Well, there's always a Z-Pack.
Oh, hey, you can't go wrong with the Z-Pack. I actually had a Z-Pack for something completely unrelated, and it worked, so...
Oh, there you go. What's funny is that because obviously, pills have different names in different countries, so I naturally just when the whole CM Punk thing came out, I was like, what is a Z-Pack? I have to do research now into what a Z-Pack actually is, and it was quite rare to actually have to do that for a podcast, so...
I didn't.
Well, you remember you remember what the full name of the drug is, right?
No, go on.
It's I'm giving you a bit of medical advice here from Dr. Solomonster. It is Zithromax. So anybody out there who wants to give that Z-Pack a shot, if somebody doesn't know what you're talking about, you just give them that name, Zithromax.
You know what? As much as I'm curious, I think I'll lay off the Z-Pack myself. I think that's probably
a good idea.
Probably a good idea. That's exactly right. So yeah. Obviously, I said that you got 400 episodes. That's fantastic. We're actually nearing our 100th ourselves, so we're going to be celebrating. We're probably going to be quite drunk throughout the course of that episode ourselves. So.
Always a good idea. Might I recommend some vodka and OJ? It's always a specialty of mine, or perhaps some whiskey. Yeah, some whiskey. Although I have to say, it's funny. You were talking about my voice before. When I do, on occasion when I do drink, I tend to favor whiskey, and you would think whiskey is actually it's probably the worst thing that you could have for your throat and for your voice. But for me, it works. So maybe that's my big secret.
I don't know. It reminds me of the old wives' tale cold cure, like whiskey and honey and lemon, or all that. So yeah, it could work.
Yes. Sure, why not?
Okay, so let's actually get into talking some wrestling. After all, that's why people come to wrestling podcasts.
Do we have to?
Do you have to? Well,
we don't have to talk about Raw. It's fine.
Well, in my notes, I may have added in a little bit of Raw. So now, obviously, Solomonster, you have a like the way that you format your show is the good, the bad, the ugly. Like the way you go from it. I have equated the good and the bad and the ugly to the good being Lucha Underground, of course. You got the bad, which is Raw, of course, and the ugly, which is Impact Wrestling. So I thought that maybe would work on. We'll touch a little bit on base on those certain things there for you this week. We'll get your thoughts. And I thought it would be great to start off the show talking about Lucha Underground, especially as Season 2 has been announced. It's coming. We're all going to enjoy it. And what is your hope? I mean, there's obviously not so much that we know about Lucha Underground actually going to happen yet. We don't know, the full details of what's going to happen, the exact dates and everything. But what's your hopes? What you're hoping to get out of Season 2 of Lucha Underground?
Well, let me ask you this first. So where you guys are, I mean, does Lucha Underground air kind of at the same time as it airs here in this country? Is it on a delay? I mean, what's the situation where you guys are?
We don't even have a channel that shows it.
Yeah, online.
Oh, wow.
That's how it is. We don't get Ring of Honor, and when we in terms of viewing them, we have to go onto the broad world of the web to be able to find that. So it is a little bit more awkward to find.
Yeah, well, you don't have to feel too bad because I actually get Lucha Underground the same way you guys do, so we're on the same page as far as that goes.
Okay, so...
but I'm very excited. I mean, I was really bummed when there was a lot of question about whether or not they would even come back. It didn't look good there for a while. And then they made the announcement, and from what I understand, and this is just from somebody who told me they spoke to him, that it looks like Vampiro may be coming back as part of the announced crew again with Matt Striker. I became a big fan of theirs last season. I wasn't sold on them at first, but yeah, they really gelled well. They had a great chemistry. They were very entertaining, and so hopefully they are coming back, and we'll see what happens. I mean, they're going to be bringing in Rey Mysterio, or trying to anyway. At least that's the plan. A lot of the same faces I would expect. They'll be back. I assume you guys saw that amazing video package at the end of the very last episode, where they showed people like leaving the temple, and they kind of, it was almost like a cliffhanger for each of the storylines that were left unresolved. And I'm looking forward just to seeing how they wrap that all up. Real storytelling on a wrestling show. It's something we don't get very often.
Yeah, it's the whole world of Lucha Underground that they managed to build for themselves, and they can play by different rules that other companies, let's say like WWE and TNA, they can't play by those rules because they're emulating sports. And Lucha Underground certainly isn't emulating sports. They're emulating their own world that they've created, so they can play by different rules. That's what the reason I like them.
Yeah, it's almost like a mix between a comic book universe and the old movie Fight Club. This kind of underground kind of movement. They've blended those two worlds together, and it just works. And I've said that on my show before. I mean, think about some of the things that we've seen on that show. We've seen people literally murdered on television. Now, when WWE tries that, it's goofy, and people laugh at it because it's stupid. But for Lucha Underground, that kind of stuff works.
Yeah, what's quite funny is that when I'm trying to sell some of our friends on Lucha Underground, that's like the first thing I say is like, people die on this show. It's no joke, People have died, and they're like, really? And I'm like, who knows? It's Lucha Underground. Kind of playing it all up in the mystical nature of it.
Yeah, people have evaporated into a big ball of fire, and they kind of shoot up into the stars and all this wacky stuff that you see on the show. But it's like, oh, okay, it's just another week. It's another episode. Cool,
I completely buy into that. It's insane, I know, but I love it.
Yes.
I think Matt says it best, actually. Like, he says on the show a lot that Lucha Underground has a feel that if you're going to attend one of their shows live, that you just get a random text message on your phone with a time and a date. That's how it feels. It's like underground, That's how it has to stay to have that sort of feeling, that it's this dark, dank place with this.
Yeah, you don't just go to the building and wait in line with your ticket. You get specific instructions emailed to you to go to a phone booth and wait there for a car to pick you up and that kind of thing.
There'll be a red door, and this is the special knock.
Yes, this is the password, and I'd like to think that's how that works.
Yeah. Maybe they just need to make a character like the bodyguard on there or something, just literally out the door letting all these people in, something like just something random. But one thing I love about Lucha Underground, it is something different. I think one of the main things that we're hoping for, especially being in England and Ireland, where I am, that's a whole different conversation for a different time, that it's along the lines of that, can they nail down some international distributors or networks that could be able to view it? Because I know that Impact has it the same. I know they're a little bit more well known, shall we say, Impact, for all their troubles that they have, but they're on a channel here called Challenge, which isn't exactly a popular channel, so to speak. So hopefully with the new season, they can nail down some of these other avenues and get some of these other eyes on the show. Do you think that that's possible? Do you think something they can go and... Do you think that they're big enough yet that they can pull that off?
I mean, maybe not right now, but I'm sure it's something they're working on as we speak. I mean, there's been talks of maybe, it even popping up on Netflix or some kind of streaming service. So yeah, I mean, one step at a time. We're getting a season 2, and we weren't even sure we were going to get that. But it's all a matter of funding. I mean, they've had these negotiations going on where they're going to try to get on a network in Mexico, one of the big TV stations down there. And from what I understand, I mean, if they could pull that deal off, that's a game changer for them, because the exposure that they will get on that network is huge, and the money that goes with it. So it really is just a matter of these deals falling into place. And if that happens, then absolutely, I think the sky's the limit. They've got some pretty big TV people behind this show. Robert Rodriguez, who's a popular director, he's behind the project. So you get the right people in the room with, so it's the right TV executives, and I think they could pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's hard to predict what's going to happen with their future, but that's kind of the appeal to it, right? That's like, you don't know what's going to happen on the show. You don't know what's going to happen with Lucha Underground out of the show. That's kind of the fun part, even as podcasters, to talk about it each week, and the potential. It could fall flat. That there is a likeliness that Lucha Underground falls flat on its face next season. I hope, obviously, touch wood, it doesn't happen, but there's also the potential that they had the best season they've ever had. They do great stuff. Everything, like a domino effect, starts knocking over, and that's one of the interesting things about Lucha Underground. You just don't know. It's so random where this show could end up.
Yeah, and look, if they fall flat on their face, I think the one thing we can agree on, it's not going to be because it's a poor TV show or because people aren't into it. I think the formula that they have is, maybe perfect isn't the right word, but the formula they have works. People are into it. They are in love with the show. And I think a big part of that is they're so disenfranchised with what they're seeing elsewhere, whether it's WWE, TNA, or whatever the case may be. It makes them crave something different that much more, and more than TNA has ever done, I think, in the entire history of the company. Here comes Lucha Underground, one season in, and they've managed to pull it off in one season in terms of giving people something genuinely different that looks different and feels different. Everything about the show is different, and that's what people want. So if it fails, it's not going to be because of that, and I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm sure that regardless of what they do, they're at very least, at worst, going to give something that's different to what we have. And I'm okay with that. That's something different. I know Matt loves the show as well. I mean, we've actually said that when Season 2 starts up, we're going to be reviewing it each week on this show, which is going to be awesome. That's going to be fun to do. Now, I hate to do it, you guys. I know we said it before that we have to talk about. Let's talk about Raw. Okay, WWE. We've talked about Lucha Underground. We've enjoyed that. Now, Raw, obviously, recently, the ratings are down week by week. The show is... What I would probably gauge as probably the overall thought of it is it's getting more forgettable and less must see. There's not enough stuff that you would want to go out of your way to watch on a weekly basis on the show. I personally put it down to the 3-hour format. I think that all their problems stem from Raw being 3 hours. And I think that all the other issues like misbooking, lackluster storylines, and all them are just basically offshoots of the 3 hour. Yeah, they've got other reasons for being that way, but the 3 hours is the main thing. What's your take on Raw at the moment? What needs to change overall for this show to stop being just interesting again in general?
Oh, I mean, where do I begin? That's a loaded question. You know what? I'll give you the simple answer. I think it starts with one person. I think it starts and stops with Vince McMahon. What we see on TV every week is his vision. It's his baby. It's his show. And it almost does, and I hate to say this, but it almost doesn't even matter whether it's Triple H or a new writer who has this great creative idea for this big storyline. It almost doesn't even matter, because at the end of the day, it all has to pass through one guy. It all has to get filtered through one guy. And he's been running the show. I mean, how long has Raw been on the air for now? Over 20 years? I think it's been a little over 20 years. Right. Mm-hmm. And he has been at the helm for all of those 20 years. You're not going to suddenly change it. He's 70 years old. You're not going to break him all of a sudden and make him see things a completely different way. It's just, I feel like as fans, we've been jerked around so many times where Raw will be awful, absolutely atrocious, and then all of a sudden it'll go through this period where, hey, maybe it's getting pretty good, maybe things are turning around, and then they just pull the rug out from under you and you go right back to the way things were. And I just don't feel anything is ever going to really change. I think he's set in his ways. I think the lack of competition for years now has been a killer. I think they get complacent, and we end up with what you see on TV. I thought that show on Monday night was absolute garbage. I don't know if you felt the same way.
It's trash. That episode is trash.
I mean, it's been pretty much trash for a few weeks now, but I could at least pick out, okay, I like this, I like that. There may have been a couple of things, but I came out of the show on Monday, I was angry. I was actually angry that I sat there and wasted my time watching that show. It's just abominable. And I don't know how much longer they can go on like that for, because they've always, the one thing I will say, they've always had that base of people that no matter how bad the show gets, you're always going to get that 3.0 or 2.8 or whatever the number is. You keep putting on shows like this, and you've got football, which in this country it's like another religion in this country. And you put those two things together, the combination of football season and Raw just being atrocious, and you're going to start to slowly erode that base, and those people aren't going to be there anymore. And then it becomes an issue of how low do they go. And, look, I'm a WWE fan. I don't want to see them go under or anything like that, but in a perverse kind of way, I would like to see that number drop even more, because maybe that would be the wake-up call they need.
Yeah, a lot of people, this is kind of going into it, a lot of people ask me, is WWE and Vince McMahon racist, with not having the black champion? I'm like, no, he's not racist. The only colour he cares about is green, which is money. That's the only colour that Vince cares about. And the company itself has been, in my opinion, the safest it's ever been, for, say, 20 years or so. So that leads to, as you said, with a lack of competition. Vince will go, well, there's more raw risk than reward here if I change things. That's probably his look on things, right? The one thing, as you say, that will change it, the only thing that really will change it is the ratings. If they do drop down, let's say they drop down past 3.0, which is quite, I don't think it will for a little while, but let's say it does.
Well, it already has.
It's going to prompt some sort of result,
Yeah, I mean, it already has. I think the show last week did a 2.4. I mean, they're already hitting numbers that you would never have imagined it would drop to. Now, part of that is the fact that they're 3 hours. So when you add that third hour in, it does tend to kind of drag the number down. So if the show went back to being 2 hours, that number would be a little higher. Because that third hour, if you've been paying attention, the last few weeks, especially this past week, just absolutely tanked. So they actually didn't do terrible the first 2 hours. I think they might have even had growth going into hour 2, and then hour 3 just plummeted. And hour 3, they spent the entire show promoting a John Cena match. So what are they going to do? Blame John Cena?
It's like, yeah, that's their issue, isn't it? They can't exactly blame him.
Of course not. Of course not.
I found it quite funny because they have pretty much opened up this third hour carrying on with this bullshit Summer Rae and Rusev angle. And it's just like, no, just let it die. Like, welcome back to Raw. Oh, no. Please, no.
These storylines that go on an extra month or two that should have finished a very, very long time ago in regards to that.
Yeah, and with that one, I don't know. I'm guessing that maybe just has more to do with Lana got hurt, and so they were kind of stuck. Maybe they were going to wrap it up at the last pay-per-view, and then she hurt her wrist, and now she's out for 4 months, and they don't know what to do. So I kind of sympathize with them a little bit.
Ziggler went up to do the movie as well, didn't he? So that elongated it as well.
Yeah, that dragged it out a little bit longer. But I'm guessing. I mean, I had said even before they announced the match, they were going to do a mixed tag. I mean, it just seemed obvious to me. And I don't know if plans have changed, and maybe we'll never see it happen. My whole thing is this thing ends with a double turn. So when it's all said and done, Ziggler and Summer are together, and Lana goes back to Rusev, but they're not evil anymore. They're baby faces. Who the hell knows now? Everything, I think, is up in the air. But yeah, I mean, you're watching a show that's so long. It's such a long show. And people will laugh at me. They're like, I can't believe you sit through 3 hours of that shit every week. And they're like, thank God for Solomonster's show because I don't have to watch Raw. And I'm like, yeah, gee, thanks. But you're watching a show that's so long. And that segment, I'm pretty sure that segment came on, was it right before the main event? I think it was an hour 3.
Yeah, it was quite towards the end of the show, at very least, yeah.
Yeah, and so you're sitting there for so long, and you're thinking to yourself, they better have something damn good planned for the end of the show. And now you're sitting there, and you're 15, 20 minutes away from the end of the show, and you've got Summer Rae doing soap opera bullshit in the middle. And I like Rusev. I actually have become a big Rusev fan. I find him very entertaining, but not entertaining enough to save this crappy storyline. So it's just you can't do that. You can't format a show that way where it just goes on forever, and that's what you give people in hour 3. It's no wonder that hour 3 plummeted down to hell.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of problems with Raw in general, and I think obviously that's what I believe anyway. The third, and you obviously can't get rid of the third hour. They get so much money with that third hour. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of where WCW in the same situation, that they had that third hour as well. It brought them a lot of revenue, but it was part of the issue of why that show, the quality of it started. Obviously, a lot of booking decisions. We had a fail of the week segment on our show where we basically, literally every single fail of the week was just WCW fails over and over and over again, all the things that they did wrong. But yeah, it's one of those issues. Yeah, I know you're saying there that you like Rusev. I'm actually a fan of Rusev myself. But you're seeing a lot of these guys that you're fans of being put in these like storylines that maybe have gone on too long or just don't really have any sort of anything interesting, and it makes you struggle then to, you like this one person, in this storyline, and then but it's harder to get into it because they're involved in everything as it is. Well, that's just the way that I end up feeling about it as well, With Raw in general, moving forward, and I know the ratings are dropping, everything along those lines. What is your thoughts on the lack of stars on the show? When I'm saying lack of stars, sure, there's stars on the show. I think the closest that you're going to get to one is probably Seth Rollins, the way that they've been booking him, world champion. He's done everything. He's done fantastic matches. But even then, you hear reports of them not being completely sold on whether or not he's going to be the new guy. Do you feel that WWE has had a lack of ability, maybe since John Cena came in? And I'm not going to go down the route of whether it's John Cena, he's the reason. I don't go to that like a lot of fans would. What would you say is part of the issue here, that they haven't been able to create new stars on the Cena level? Do you think maybe they've gone back to thinking that they only need like one very huge established star? Or do what's your thoughts on just the lack of stars in this era of WWE at the moment?
Well, I mean, it's the booking. It's pretty obvious to me when you book your television show to make everybody pretty much look on the same level, right? So let's go back. You say Cena's the only one real big star that they have, which is true. I mean, nobody is really on his level. Not Orton, not Roman Reigns, not yet. Maybe he'll get there. But let's go back 15 years, 20 years to the Attitude Era. Everybody talks about the Attitude Era, right? Who do you have on top? You have Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's the number one guy. You have The Rock, who got pretty much as hot as Austin. Okay,
Yeah.
he got to that level. It was pretty much neck and neck between them for a while. And then you had The Undertaker, you had Triple H, you had Mankind, Kane, Big Show, Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle. I mean, they had a ton of guys that were on top.
Yeah.
Real legit main event stars. And what you didn't see, you never saw with Steve Austin. Maybe you did with The Rock because he was very giving as far as letting, not letting, but, Rock would get beaten a fair amount. But I look at a guy like Austin, who was this megastar. If Austin was in a feud now with Bray Wyatt, and they're having matches week after week or month after month, okay, pay-per-view to pay-per-view. Austin wins match 1, Bray Wyatt wins match 2. Austin wins match 3, Bray Wyatt wins match 4. And I've said this on my show before, this whole even Steven thing. You win one, now you win one. Now it's your turn to win. Okay, you won, now it's your turn to win. Who gets over? Who gets over that way?
Do you feel like it invalidates the initial victories by any of these people that they lose?
Of course it does.
Yeah.
Of course it does. I mean, look at how hot Brock Lesnar has become. He's this major attraction where they will build entire network specials around him. He'll have a match on a show, and it's all about him. Him against Kofi Kingston. They made this big event because he's an attraction. Brock Lesnar, he's not on TV every week, so that helps him, but Brock Lesnar is not winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one, right? The biggest stars that this company has ever produced, they weren't booked that way. So the fact that everybody else is booked that way, you have an entire roster of basically of mid-carders. I mean, that's really what they are. Look up and down the card. That's all they are.
Yeah.
And just to go to the second point that you made, you said, well, is part of it this whole fascination with having just like one big guy? Yes, that is a big, and I've said that also on my show before. What is this fascination with having one guy, the face of the company, right? They built storylines around this. Who's the face of the WWE? Who cares? Why do I care about who the face of the company is? Why can't you have 2 faces? Why can't you have 4? Why can't you have a diva? I look at somebody like Sasha Banks or Bayley when they bring her up, maybe even Charlotte. One day, I think they could be, what John Cena is for everybody else as far as the face. They could be that too. Why can't they be? Why can't Bayley be the face of the company?
I always thought that having the 1 star was a bit dangerous as a business move, because what if this guy gets hurt, and obviously I hope this never happens to anyone, but gets hurt and he can't come back for whatever reason.
Well, that's what happened with Austin in '99, right? He got the bum neck, and he had to go away, and that hurt. But guess what? Rock and Triple H, especially Rock, was already at that level, and Triple H was just a level beneath. So the two of those, both of those guys carried the company on their back in 2000. 2000 was one of the best years they ever had creatively. That was a fun year, and they had a lot of stars on TV. If God forbid, now John Cena is going to go away for about 6 weeks. Nobody seems to know why, but he's going to be going away soon.
Personal reasons, yeah.
Right, exactly, personal reasons. I guess he's having a sex change or something, who knows. But so he'll go away for 6 weeks. It's not long enough. He really, honestly, should probably be gone for 6 months, but that's never going to happen. So let's say John Cena got hurt, like really badly hurt, and he's going to be gone for a year. Okay? Who is the most logical person that you think that would step up, that they would put in his place, right? You would think Roman Reigns, right?
Yeah.
You're watching Raw Monday night. They do the whole Susan G. Komen thing. Who are the 2 people in the ring?
Yeah, I thought that was quite poignant, actually, Reigns being in there with Cena. I thought that was quite poignant that he was the one chosen to be on the other side of the ring to Cena. I thought that meant a lot more than just them being there, sort of thing.
Right, and that was not an accident, because clearly they have it in their heads. We're sticking with this guy, and he's going to be the next John Cena, which is also a mistake, because Roman Reigns should be this badass ass kicker. He shouldn't be. I mean, no offense, it's a nice thing that they do, but I don't really want to see Roman Reigns walking around with pink T-shirts, and he does the commercials where he's sipping tea and he's got his pinky up in the air. I mean, that's not how I look at Roman Reigns and how I think people would like to see him. But if Cena gets hurt and Roman steps up, that's great. But like you said, you got one guy. It's too bad that Dean Ambrose has, as popular as he is, right? He's been beaten and beaten and beaten. Cesaro, who I will keep harping on him no matter what. I know it's a lost cause, but they had the opportunity to make him into a big star, and they completely messed that up. And
the thing I found quite funny with Cesaro recently, they've sort of like build him up. It's like he's in these pretty good rivalries. He's getting good matches, and then suddenly like, oh, Big Show just knocked him out. Oh, okay, well, he's back to square one.
Yeah, and not only that, but like, okay, so Big Show knocked him out. They must have some big plans for the Big Show. Yeah, their big plans was to send him to Madison Square Garden and get beaten in 2 minutes, and then on Raw last week, he gets laid out like a chump, and that's what they sacrificed Cesaro for.
There's no ultimate like end goal with some of these guys that you wish. We call Cesaro, painfully so, the modern day tragedy in wrestling, because that guy could be as big as anyone on there with the stuff he can do. And you talk about Ambrose there, it just reminds me of when he, fake, shall we say, won the championship, before it was reversed in his match against Seth Rollins. The pop he got for winning that title was monster, and you think that this guy could be doing such a bigger role for you if he was just given the opportunity to. And even if let's say you had made him champion just for that little while, I'm sure people would have taken a Dean Ambrose as much as they would have taken to a Roman Reigns.
Yeah, and they could have done it. There was really no reason not to do it, and that you could just switch the belt back to Rollins unless they want Rollins to have this long reign uninterrupted as champion. I don't think there's people saying, well, they want him to break CM Punk's record. He's not. I don't see that happening, and I don't think that's the plan. And I said the same thing with Sting. Why not have Sting beat? Now, we know Sting got hurt, but let's pretend that Sting didn't get hurt. Why not have Sting win the championship that night and just drop it back to Rollins 2 weeks later at the Garden or Hell in a Cell a month later? It's like, I honestly don't believe, I don't know for a fact, but I don't believe that was ever the plan. And I don't understand why not. Why not shake things up a little bit? You're not going to keep the title on the guy long term. He's 56 years old. I get it. But it's like, nope, we have our guy, and we're going to have another fuck finish at the end of this match, and we've got our plans. And it's like, okay, well, guess what? Your plans don't seem to be working out very well.
Yeah, I thought along the lines of, especially with these Raws doing quite badly recently, I guarantee that if you had Sting coming out, like you said, let's just move away from the fact that he did get injured and just say, let's just say this was the original plan. Because if it was the plan, he would have won the title even if he was injured. That's just the way it would have ended. But the fact, obviously, it wasn't. I'm sure that a lot of people would have tuned into Raw just to see Sting show up on there with the world title around his shoulder and him cut a promo as the WWE World Champion. That would have got a lot of interest. That would have made people like us really want to watch the show, but they decided, no, we want to go along this line. We want to go with Rollins. And I'm happy going with Rollins, but I completely would agree with you. I thought giving the belt to Sting for a little while would have been interesting. Seeing this guy that you never thought was going to be in WWE in the first place, but seeing him as their champion, that would have been quite interesting to see, and I'm sure everyone would have wanted to see what you would have said as champion.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not even sure, honestly. I mean, you just said you're sure that the next night on Raw there would have been all this interest and stuff. Look, when Sting first debuted at Survivor Series last year, he walked out on Raw the next night. He opened the show. I don't even know if they announced that he was going to be there, and people were shocked when the Raw numbers came in because the opening segment of the show did 5 million viewers. I mean, I don't even remember the last time they touched 5 million viewers. So there was genuine interest in Sting. Even if Sting would have won the title last month, I honestly don't think the at least in terms of the ratings, it being reflected in there, I think you may be overstating how much interest there's been. I think the bloom is probably already off the Sting rose, just the way he's been booked ever since, he debuted, really. But look, if nothing else, you've got a network special coming up. I think as a draw, you might have been able to pick up some new subscribers by hyping, hey, we got Sting defending the title for the first time, his first match ever in Madison Square Garden. This is a big deal. So I personally would look at it not so much, hey, we're going to get ratings the next night, because I honestly don't think the numbers would have been that high. But hey, we got this special coming up, and shit, Sting could help us bring in a few subscribers. We're going to announce a new subscriber number at the end of October. Like, that's along the lines of what I would have been thinking. And just have Sting drop the belt back and go on with your plans. Do Rollins and Kane. Do it to your heart's content. Who cares? But they just, I don't know. I don't know if it's an inability to break away from their formula and just do fun shit. Like, no, we have our plans and we must stick to them. I don't know. I don't know if you guys disagree with me on that, but it just feels like, what happened to the fun? What happened to just rolling with it, you know?
I think their idea of fun is doing some of the comedy angles that, let's just say, didn't go down too well. I'm talking about, the bunny, right, and all this sort of stuff. I think that's Vince's idea of
what a great payoff, huh?
Yeah,
what
exactly.
a great payoff to that storyline.
So
I can only imagine like Vince proper like deep belly laughing out the back, just like, oh, this is great. It's like just everyone else around him just like laugh because he's laughing.
Yeah.
Oh, it was awful.
I'm sure he found every one of those segments to be absolutely hilarious, but I don't know. It's interesting.
And that's the problem, isn't it? They're playing to an audience of one.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's his show, and if he finds it entertaining, which of course he's biased, he thinks everyone else should in the same merit.
Yeah.
So that's part of the issue that I think that along with it. I was going to talk a little bit about Impact Wrestling, but we're running out a little bit of time, and I'm sure that Matt, being and ourselves, I don't think we've told you, but we're actually going to NXT Takeover in London.
Oh, very nice.
We'll be there live. So I thought, what a great opportunity for us to speak about a little bit about NXT as a whole, because you were at Brooklyn, weren't you?
I was.
Oh, Brooklyn, brilliant. And obviously you got to witness the match. I'm sure that everyone knows what we're talking about. NXT as a whole, obviously it's really hot, and I'm sure we could speak for hours about how much we enjoy the show. Well, I know we could, of course. We do love NXT.
Quite easily.
Quite easily, yeah, that's it. Who do you think then, Solomonster? And it's a hard question. Who do you think there has got the most chance to become a big level draw on the main roster when it comes time to? I personally look to someone like an Apollo Crews, a Finn Balor. What's your choice? Who do you think is the guy that they look at, and isn't so much, fair enough, you've got the internet fans, along those lines. I don't really like using that term, but we can pick people, as we like, but they might not be a draw for the general audience. Who do you see as that guy, that big draw for that general audience?
Well, I think the big draw for the general audience, you mentioned the two names already. I think Finn Balor, who obviously they have big plans for. I think it's pretty obvious. And Apollo Crews. I mean, the guy, what's not to like? He's not the biggest guy in the world, but by no means is he small. He's got a great physique. He's incredible to watch in the ring. He can move around like a cruiserweight. Very articulate. They want to do media stuff with it. Like he's what they look for. So I think he'd be at the top of my list. Finn, pretty much right there with him. And I'll give you two other names. And maybe this isn't so much mainstream. Although, you know what, I would say she can be. And this is going to completely depend on how they book these people. And based on the conversation we just had, I don't know that any of us have a lot of faith.
Of course, yeah.
But if I had to give two other names, one is Bayley. I think if they handle her the right way, for what they would be looking for, they want her to appeal to young girls and sell T-shirts and headbands, and she's a good wrestler. I think she could be the biggest female star they have, right there with Sasha. And the other name I would throw out there, and I'm a big fan of his, is Chad Gable.
Yes.
I am a big Chad Gable fan. And also, his partner, Jason Jordan. Yeah, he's got that physique that I'm sure Vince is like salivating over. But I look at Chad Gable, and it's just, I think, a Kurt Angle without the bad neck and without the drug issues. And I say to myself, this guy could be a huge star. Now, will he be? I hope so, but I don't have a lot of faith. But he could definitely be that guy.
It's like everyone is down to how they eventually get booked. That's even Finn Balor. You think him, you just put him there, you put the paint on him, and he'll be fine. He'll do great. Everyone want to see him, but there is a way that you can fuck these people up. Let's just be honest, especially with WWE.
Well, look, I mean, just to interject real quick, we've already seen it with one of the NXT stars they brought in. Look at Neville.
Yeah.
Neville was a huge star at NXT. He's got unbelievable talent. He's one of the most talented guys they have in that entire company. And look at how they're using it. That's what made me angry from Monday. I didn't mention it, but when they had Neville out there with Sheamus, and Sheamus kicked him in the head in whatever it was, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and pinned him. I know they're doing the storyline with Neville and Barrett, and it's not like a main event storyline. But I just watched that, and I'm like, you guys just don't get it. You guys don't get it. You will never get it. And Finn Balor, good luck to you, buddy. I mean, I think they have big plans for him, but he could be the next guy they bring up and have the Big Show out there mocking his accent and calling him names, and that's exactly how you don't get these guys over.
That's the sort of damage that you find very hard to repair on a guy once he's been dressed. The Stephanie McMahon treatment, shall we say, when you get dressed down. When you're a big heel on the roster, you get dressed down by Stephanie McMahon. It's a little bit hard to repair the damage that's been done to the eyes of the fans once that's happened to you. Of course.
No, of course. I mean, look at Neville. I mean, you can say what you want about Neville, but one of the things that they do on TV is they make fun, and the announcers do it too. JBL's done it, not just the heels. They'll make fun of his ears. Oh, he's got big ears. He looks like a hobbit, right? They say that all the time on television. Well, guess what? If this guy has big ears and you think he looks a little goofy, but you hope that one day he'll be a big star, how about not drawing attention to the fact that he's got big ears and not mentioning it on TV every single week?
It would help if they didn't highlight all these things that society that
yes,
they would say, oh look, laugh at this guy, look at all these funny things on his head, and it's, come on,
of course,
we want to cheer for him and not laugh at him for whatever reason they come up with.
Yes, and in the original ECW, people have told story after story. One of the things that made Paul Heyman so great and so effective at being a promoter, maybe not so much a businessman, but as a promoter, is the fact that he could take a guy. Look at the Sandman. You look at the Sandman, you're like, I don't get it. I look at the Sandman and I'm like, I've seen guys like this in bars here in Brooklyn. I don't expect them to be, selling out arenas in a wrestling match. But Paul Heyman looked at a guy like that and said, all right, he's got weaknesses, he's got strengths. How about we hide those weaknesses and we'll just focus on what he's really good at? And I feel like what Vince McMahon does is the complete opposite of what Paul Heyman used to do in ECW. And there's a reason that ECW was successful for whatever it was, 6-7 years. And then other things happened, and that's why they went under. But it wasn't because Paul Heyman was a bad booker. I think they could learn from that.
I think the whole thing about ECW in general is just that he didn't run the company as well as possibly it should have. But in terms of booking and creating these characters and these people that people got invested in, Paul Heyman was fantastic in that role. As you say that, I think he even used. I think they're in that document. The DVD they put out, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman. I think that was one of the lines they did in it. That was, he managed to hide people's strengths and hide people's weaknesses and really showcase why you wanted to see them. Their actual, the parts of their character and their look, and that were good and really bring them to the forefront. And if they would talk every week about how awesome and someone like Neville is at doing all these high flying abilities, rather than talking about other things,
or how short he is.
Yeah, then maybe.
Yeah, and they talk about that. I mean, they talk about how great of an athlete he is, and he's amazing. They do talk about that, but they also give equal time to all that other stuff. And all they have to do is just not do that. Just don't focus on it. And they just completely, we talked before, a roster of mid-carders. And that's one of the many, many reasons why.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we've had you for a long time here on the show. Loved having you here. I'd like to ask you one more thing before we let you go, Solomonster, and obviously
sure.
Give other things here. What you may not know is that my wife is actually a pretty decent baker. And the reason I'm saying this right now is because I'd like to ask you, which would you actually prefer, a Samoan caramel twist or a Brian fudge cake?
Well, actually, I would prefer the Samoan caramel twist, personally.
Well, stop the presses. Stop the presses right now.
I know. I'm exposing myself here. But I will say, part of it is when it comes to like the fudge cake and that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I am lactose intolerant, so there are actually, I know. So there are some things I have to stay away from because bad things will happen. And I think it would be in my best interest to go for the caramel twist.
Yeah, okay. Well, I tell you what, I'll have to maybe sweet talk her into making one. We'll send you a picture just to make you a little bit jealous for that.
Yeah, works for me.
All right, then, Solomonster, it's been great having you on the show. Of course, if you guys have been listening to us, then you can also I'll put a link to the Solomonster Sounds Off the page, and you can view it there through all the multiple different ways that you can view it. You've got there on Podbean, you're on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, and all that good stuff. So plenty of ways to get to the show. And obviously, we wouldn't have you here on the show if we didn't enjoy your show. Of course we do. Like I said, you're one of the inspirations for our own, for our own podcast. And we obviously thank you greatly for taking time out of your busy schedule, your 5 million things that you need to do, and coming here and being on our show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. When I hear that kind of stuff, like people say, "Oh, I started a podcast because I was listening to yours." It's really cool to hear that, and congratulations as you guys approach 100 episodes.
You'll toast yourself. We'll have a beer for you.
We could do better than the beer. We can go a little harder than that even.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you
I'll
what.
get the whiskey ready.
Thank you very. Yeah, this guy's got the right idea.
Yeah, Matt's got all the he's got a finer taste, shall we say, for alcohol. So I'm sure he'll be able to find something worthy of yourself to celebrate.
My kind of guy.
All right then, guys, thanks for listening to the show. Like I said, it's been a big treat for us, and obviously hopefully it's been a big treat for you. If you did enjoy this episode, then what you can obviously do, you can leave a like. You can also subscribe to our channel, be one of our now almost over 400 subscribers on this channel as we move upwards, onwards and upwards. And like we said, 100 episodes coming soon. It's going to be a great celebration, and we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. But we hope you have a great week. As much as we said bad stuff about Raw, we hope that you do enjoy it. We hope that you enjoy what you're watching on a weekly basis, and if not, you can always listen to ourselves or, like we said, Solomonster on his particular views on that. But apart from that, have a great week, and myself to you, and we'll catch you all next time.